The new Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook Wild Game Recipes for the Grill, Smoker, Campfire, and Camp Stove is out on April 24th and is available for pre-order now. Here is your book for everything that's best cooked or eaten outside, from grilling to open fire cooking to Dutch ovens to smokers to barbecue to backpacking meals to how to pull off the perfect fish fry, with pit stops along the way for lessons about Ice Age cooking methods and the best 5 ways to construct a cooking fire you can be proud of. And of course, we're focusing on wild game and fish here with over 100 recipes, including stuffed venison burgers 3 ways, wild duck with ahi verde sauce, a jerky made with cola, a gin and tonic made with fire-charred lemons, and grilled frog legs made with a sticky sweet sauce. This ain't your normal cookbook, so be prepared to be surprised. Pre-order your copy now. For more info, visit themeateater.com.
Hey, I'm KC.
I'm Tyler.
And I'm Jack.
And you're listening to
The Element Podcast. What's happening, all my woods people? It is a beautiful day in Kansas. It's 81 degrees out right now. The Whitetail weatherman is giving you the report here. Do not forget who I am. KC,
Tyler.
you're driving.
I am driving.
That was not a good decision.
Oh, man. Lots of bad decisions and good decisions have been made the past 8 or 9 days. So
Let me just say
All
this. KC is a very responsible driver. He follows the speed limits and puts the cruise on at the speed limit, like all the time.
yeah.
All the time. I don't know if it's because we're not in your truck and you don't have Navi, because your Navi usually tells you what speed limit is, right?
It does.
And we ended up going a little bit fast in a spot. And
It's those hills, dude. You come down off the hills and sometimes your truck speeds up.
Dude, cops
11
don't
over.
realize.
No,
11
they don't care,
over.
actually. They just don't
11
care.
over. Dang, Jack's calling you out, bro. It wasn't just a little bit.
I'm about to let the air out of his tires when we get home.
Silver bullet will not be a bullet.
Yeah, but we were pulled over for multiple violations.
Yeah, we were. We were.
So I bore the brunt of that situation, and will now either accuse Kansas Department of Transportation of giving me COVID or pay a ticket. I haven't decided which one to do yet. So.
I think the COVID thing's a good idea. For sure, man.
Yeah, Mr. Guy did not observe social distancing or wear a mask whenever he came and ticketed me.
He did not,
But
man.
I made a joke about running 90 the rest of the way home, and he kind of laughed.
He wanted to
He
so
got real
bad.
mad at himself.
Yep. He
Yeah.
wanted to laugh real
What he
bad.
doesn't understand is KC can break them all, dude. That's why he left so quickly after that. He's like, I gotta go.
Yep.
These guys are too cool.
That's it, man.
Yep.
That
But
is it.
Anyways, what are we gonna try to start at like day 8 and go backwards or what, man?
Man,
We gotta
no.
We gotta
We're
go
definitely
back.
not. Here's the thing. Why we're in Kansas is because we're heading back from South Dakota. It's a long ways. We actually we hunted Nebraska this morning. We'll talk more about that here in a second, but I just wanted to kind of talk about why we are where we are. We're hoping to make it in tonight in a decent time. It looks like we will. And we have been in South Dakota since Tuesday,
The 30th.
Yeah, we got there.
30th.
30th.
Wednesday
Yeah, we got
the
there
30th.
Tuesday. No, it was Tuesday.
Was it Tuesday?
Yeah.
So we left on Monday?
Yep.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Correct.
So, yeah, we got there on Tuesday, and we have had a blast, man. I mean, it was so much fun. Our plan was, this is a place, first of all, is a state we've neither one of us, all three of us, have been to. And part of the country in a type of habitat that none of the three of us have seen.
Yeah.
So there's a pretty cool mystique to that and like adventure to it and everything. But there's also a big challenge, right?
Learning curve.
Which is one of your favorite words that I
Challenge?
say from time to time.
We need to, in true South Dakota form, you got to call it a challenge since we've been up there. First of all, one of the first things that we learned in South Dakota is that they speak a very different version of English than we do.
I think it's actually a I think it's a English version of German.
I think that might be it. Yeah, it was. I guess it depends on who the person is, because some of the people didn't have that thick of an accent. But was it lady at that cafe? Is she the one that was like the?
You couldn't understand a word she said.
Oh my gosh!
Oh, dude! But y'all missed the first lady.
Oh yeah,
that
was in the pizza place.
Yes.
Man, she was behind the counter, and she was only in there for a brief minute. I don't know, like, it's kind of weird. I feel like just random residents of the town work that convenience store.
I feel like it's like they're on the honor system where everybody maybe they have the communism thing kind of like the reservation does.
Yeah, yeah.
Where it's like everybody kind of has part ownership of that convenience store, and they just all take turns working it and being in there.
It's like if you can make however much profit you can make while you work it is what you make.
That's it, dude.
So I think that is probably how it goes, because they were all friendly. So that means they're trying to make the most profit.
South Dakota's a very friendly state to hunters.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They love us.
They do.
You know, I hate to be this way, but when you're traveling around, you don't always just be like, I'm up here hunting, you know, because some people might just spit in your food or whatever. Nobody wants to eat spit, you know.
No.
But even if it's
Except
your own.
for y'all.
But
y'all are some German,
first of all,
opposite of germaphobes, whatever they are.
But, like, they were like, y'all up here hunting? Like, yeah. They're like,
Which is weird, because none of us had camo on or anything.
I did.
Did you?
Well,
the first time?
Maybe I had an Onyx shirt on.
Oh, well,
they don't know what that is.
Surely they don't.
but it says hunt.
Oh, Onyx Hunt.
That's it.
That's good branding, Onyx. Way to go.
Way to go, guys. Now we know it's...
Maybe we should name it Element Hunt.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah, the Element Hunt.
Yeah, but...
let's not say that, because they might make a shirt of it.
Somebody else might steal that idea. In fact, let's just stop recording now, because anything forward will be stolen.
Yeah.
Anyways, got some pizza, and then harvested our first animal shortly thereafter.
Yeah, we did.
Definitely, it was a harvest, I would say.
I'm talking out of that town, that particular town, it became Sharptail Mecca, dude.
Sharptail what?
Sharptail grouse.
Sharptail grouse.
So we had to do a little research on this. Our friend Brian Koch from Ultimate Upland, that's the only plug you're ever going to get from me ever again, he told us or whatever, that like he was going to be in North Dakota this time of year, this summer. He was telling us this, and he was like, telling us how there's a bunch of sharptails all up and through that area. And I was like, some kind of weird bird I've never heard of, but it sounds like a cool deal.
Well, you know how it is when bird hunters tell you there's a bunch of birds. Sometimes it means just 5. You know, like.
Yeah, especially him, because he doesn't post any pictures of birds that he kills.
Yeah, it's like the limit on pheasants in some states is 3. So when somebody says there's a bunch of birds, like, what does that mean?
Yeah,
you don't really know.
Yeah, so. But I looked up sharptails this summer, and I was like, oh, those are pretty cool, man. Like, the males have some kind of orangish yellow and, like, purple eyelids or something or another or whatever. I don't remember exactly what they look like, because we didn't get any up-close looks at any of them doing their lek thing or whatever. But they are a chicken-sized bird, kind of about like a pheasant with a shorter tail. They are very closely related to the lesser prairie chicken, I think, and are actually considered via the South Dakota's Game and Parks website. They're like considered as a part of like an aggregate when you look at them with a limit and stuff like that, I think.
It's like when you shoot ducks, you can shoot 5 ducks, but they can be a combination of different ducks.
Right. You could shoot, say, 6 ducks, 5 of them could be mallards.
Yeah.
Or you could have 2, pintails or whatever it might be. These are the same way. It's like the limit's 5 or whatever it is. And I guess because they resemble each other so closely and they're hard to tell the difference.
When they get up,
they just decide, like you can shoot 5 prairie chickens, or you can shoot 5 sharptails, or 3 and 2, or whatever.
Did we ever figure out if there was a limit on partridge?
Yeah, there's Hungarian partridge up there. Did we ever see any?
I don't know.
What do they look
we
like?
know of.
Do you know what they look like?
No, like those other birds. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't either.
Like, I mean, if you got them up close, I'm sure they look different. But
I was thinking it was a chucker. Is that chucker like
Chucker's
the
different.
street name for it or something?
No, a chucker's a different deal.
Okay.
I think a Hungarian partridge. You buy that at fly shops to tie certain flies with.
Oh.
It's like a really mottled brown looking.
Jack's pulling up a picture of it. It looks
It's a
very
great partridge.
much. Looks very much like
a chucker, right?
No,
No.
it looks more like
of
the
a sharp
grouse.
tail on the back.
Yeah, yeah.
But the head kind of looks
It's got
a little.
gray, like a chucker gray on it
Yeah.
or whatever,
Yeah.
kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have the mask or whatever, though.
Yeah. Who knows, dude?
Yeah. There's some weird, small, like medium-sized birds that are exotic in America.
There is. But a native bird that was harvested, right?
Right back to the story, right?
Yeah.
So, yes, we started seeing these birds everywhere, and they're like in the ditches. It's getting kind of like golden hour, you know.
Yeah.
And so, like, I guess they're coming out to like kind of feed on grit and stuff by the roads, and they're everywhere, dude. And KC keeps pointing them out. He's like, "Oh my goodness, what are these?" We're like, "It's like they're sharptails, you know. They're prairie chickens, something, whatever." And so, like, we're seeing them, and like. Finally, I'm like, man, I hope we don't hit one or something, you know. And all of a sudden, this group of like 7 gets up and starts flying. The wind is cooking, by the way. And of course, they get up into the wind, right? Well, the wind happens to be pushing across the road. And I ain't saying I tried to hit one, but I ain't saying I tried to get out of the way either. Dude, we smoked one straight on.
And
dude.
it donked too. It
Oh,
wasn't
it
like
donked.
it wasn't like a poof. It was a thunk.
Dude, I thought it broke my truck, which I still haven't checked
We
on
haven't
to
looked
see.
yet.
But yeah, it like smoked it straight on, dude. And we flipped out because, to be honest, we wanted to hit one.
Wanted to eat one.
We wanted to eat one. And so I'm not sure if we've eaten it or we kept it or not. I can't really say. But we did want to like at least see one, you know. So it was pretty interesting. We stopped and turned around and got some pictures of it and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, we figured out it was a sharp-tailed grouse, and we continued seeing a bunch of them on
Ends
this
up
trip.
there's hundreds up there. I mean,
Yep.
they're around, and
Yep.
you have to. South Dakota, very friendly to hunters, in like personally,
Yep.
and then also like just as a state when it comes to licensing and stuff, except for the bird stuff.
They know they got birds.
Yeah, they want bird hunters, right? So they manage for having a bunch of it. And South Dakota's known as the pheasant state, right?
Right.
And it's got so many different. Well, the thing is, you can go up there and you can kill 5 pheasants, you can kill 5 prairie chickens or sharptail a day, and then you can keep 3 times that as a bag limit. Like you can rack it up.
Yeah.
So their small game license, what you have to have, is $121 as a non-resident, and our big game tag does not include that.
Which made me sad.
Made us so sad
You know,
because
we
Well,
also
because we did bring a shotgun.
yeah,
Yes.
we weren't going to spend $120 with the one shell between the 3 of us.
no,
Because we had one shell. So, we definitely could have probably gone and bought some shells somewhere. But I will say this, that's some remote country.
it is.
Yeah.
There's a lot of South Dakota that doesn't have anything more than what you were saying is a gas station town.
Dude, I'm telling you, from the Nebraska line north, it was just gas station towns. That's it.
Yeah. So, and so we, anyway, we ended up hitting that sharptail. I can't even figure out what to call them. Like I've called them all kinds of things on this trip. we hit it, and anyway, we made it up to our spot, the spot that we had picked on the way up as being the spot we wanted to end up for the first evening, and we got there with like maybe an hour of daylight left.
This is our scouting day. So
This-
it's
yeah,
the day
it's the
before
day
the
before
opener.
opening.
We wanted to be there a little bit earlier, but ends up it's just a long way to South Dakota.
Yeah.
Very long way.
Especially if you're going to go anywhere further than the state line, right?
Yeah.
So it's there's actually no straight lines in South Dakota. You
Yeah.
have to zig and zag to get places too. So it just takes quite a while. And we got there pretty much just in time to glass golden hour, which, for all intents and purposes, was the most effective. It would have been nice to drive around more and get an eye on some ag and different stuff in the area, but we figured out some of that stuff just driving up. But we had picked a spot on public land that we could go up, glass across some private to some other public that we thought would be good habitat for deer. That we knew.
Is that legal to glass across airspace of private?
Man, you're talking. You're gonna have to call the Department of Interior and see what they have to say about it. Personally, I feel like I'm outside the statute of limitations on being 7 days or more since I did it, so it's fine.
Definitely.
Yeah, and there weren't any corners involved. It was across. Corner crossing is
Right.
bad,
Yeah,
but if you just
sure.
cross on the side, it's fine.
Yeah, definitely.
Do not take legal advice from the element.
We
But,
were on top of a pretty good hill, though. So how far does the airspace go up that they own?
Well, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Is it from the Is it from like the lower deck, or is it from a certain elevation or whatever?
Like at what point does airspace become international or whatever?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. You're going to have to call the international authority on that.
I think I know who that is.
Okay,
it's
good.
a fellow podcaster.
Oh, man. Well, we were glassing a mile and a half away pretty much to a belt of habitat that was near some agriculture.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, Maven had sent us a new spotting scope. It was like, what was it, the S10 or something like? I don't remember.
Can't remember.
Maven,
S2, maybe.
S2?
Yeah, S2.
So that thing was super handy. It's not like a super powerful one, but it's
super handy.
Yeah, super handy's a local gas station for where we're from. But it was slightly outgunned at the mile and a half, but you could definitely still tell stuff, you know. No fault of the scope. It's just it's a long ways.
If it was like a big sizable buck, target buck,
which we saw 3 the first night.
Exactly. There's target buck
There's
dead
one
in the
right
ditch
there.
right there.
Somebody targeted him.
Targeted that sucker. But
Just like a
anyways,
grouse.
that scope was bad to bone and a half. Like it's a game changer because you all were looking through binoculars. I was looking through the scope. I've got a cactus needle in my leg right now. I can feel.
Do you really?
From that spot, probably.
You also sat on a cactus that night, too.
Oh, my gosh.
Dude, you did. You
Cactus
plopped
everywhere.
right down on a cactus.
Golly. But
Boy got up quick, dude.
the way we had found this spot is, we were looking on Onyx pretty hard before we headed up there. And it was, guys, you've heard us talk about it a good bit, but Onyx is just super integral to what we do all the time, right?
Yeah.
And probably never more than this trip, honestly, because it's a place we've never been. No one's been there. We don't know anything about it, and we're trying to figure out what's private, what's public, where there's deer, and all that kind of stuff.
Well, and let's talk about this a little bit while we're on the subject. We had, and we'll kind of go into this, but like the next several days, we had to do a lot of driving to find properties and stuff, and we were pretty much on X for 6 days straight or whatever, and that was what we did. And so it's a huge deal for us, when we go out of state. And I'll just say this, speaking of out of state, we just released or we're releasing tonight as this podcast releases a Map Scout Challenge for the state of Illinois,
dude,
which is also known as Iowa sometimes.
Apparently, because there's some giant bucks.
Yeah.
That Missouri buck that we got on camera was really big.
Mm-hmm. This dude's just gnarly.
I can't help but use the word aggregate again because it's a fun word to say. We got 2 big bucks on this sucker. One of them being like, I don't know, kind of like a once-in-a-lifetime type deer for a lot of guys.
He's heavy. Got double hooks, man, on G2s. Like
big deer. You'll see him in the thumbnail, but it's worth watching the whole thing to see what it's all about.
There's some cool stuff.
Yeah, and just a real quick shout-out to our buddy Zach Owsley. He helped us out getting that camera and stuff, so appreciate it, Zach. Thanks for going and doing that for us.
So if you see a new guy in the video, it's him.
Yeah.
Just don't be wigged out like you all of a sudden you got to a different video or something.
We might do some more stuff with him in the future. He made a really cool hunting rig that we might try to talk about at some point in time. But
sure.
Yeah. So anyways, in South Dakota, we got there and glassed, and as Jack said, I was using the spotter. Y'all were using the binos. And y'all could tell stuff were deer, but only I could really see what they were and what was going on.
And we also couldn't tell sometimes that there was a deer there until you had pointed it out to us.
Yeah.
So.
And, at that distance, black dots can be about near anything, so it's kind of hard to tell. But either way, that spot that we found on the map really worked out well because we were nowhere near those deer. It was the only place that you could get to see them moving from their beds to the food.
Yeah.
You couldn't even, if you would have been on the other side of the food, you wouldn't have been able to see because of the roll of land. So, having the topographical lines laid over, the aerial or whatever, like a hybrid mode was super handy. But like Jack said, back to that, we spotted 3 bucks coming out of one particular little drainage. And they, very intently walked to 2 groups of trees, what ended up being, kind of saplings or whatever once we got there later in the hunt. But we knew that they were just walking these 2 trees. And at that moment, we knew, it was like, okay, well, that's the bed to feed pattern.
Right.
If we can get in there and get on that, we can kill deer.
Yeah.
we can see bucks, and it was a huge confidence booster. First night in there.
We talked about the first 24 hours quite a bit. We did a podcast on it last year, about a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
And the first 24 hours was like looking good at this point.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and then we looked at the next 7 days of weather.
And wind.
And the wind is...
It was hysterical.
Oh, my gosh.
Literally, I mean... And when I say hysterical, I don't necessarily mean it in the laughing sense.
Yeah, that's the full sense of the word hysterical.
Yeah.
Pull your hair out type thing. Yes.
It was like the wind switched every 12 hours, and it was whatever that. Basically, these deer were on a north and south pattern from bed to feed, and whatever pattern that was in, say, the morning, it would be the opposite wind of what we needed, and then that afternoon, a northern would blow in, and we would get the opposite or whatever, whatever would happen.
Pretty much the deer had the wind in their face every day.
Every day.
Every evening, every morning.
And they were pretty much, and we thought this, but we have confirmed it since. These deer were going to move in the same direction, pretty much on the same trails, no matter what the wind was.
Yeah.
So, like, could be super effective if you just had the right wind. And literally, for the next 4 days, it was just like ridiculous, man. The wind would switch. We'd get a front come in at night and it'd blow the wrong way, and then we'd get, they'd settle, and it would, because they were all just mini fronts or whatever, I guess. They weren't like, those big cold fronts that last 2 days or whatever.
Months. What they call those months?
Months.
Because it's South Dakota, right?
Yeah. So they were, and, it was just consistently cold the whole time too, man.
Yeah.
Like, we had freezing temps every night except for the last night.
Freezing jacks, too.
Freezing jacks, man.
I was cold.
Hey, speaking of, I got a pro tip for people.
Okay.
So we camped, just to be completely honest here. And we'll talk more about that later on, I think. But just a quick pro tip. I slept the first night in a 15-degree sleeping bag, and I got kind of cold in the early morning or late morning hours, before I woke up. And then the next several nights in a row, I took my down jackets and I put them in my bag with me, and I put one of them underneath me because I wasn't necessarily cold, just spots on me were cold. So I put them underneath me, or one of them underneath me, and it's like it takes away, because your down sleeping bag crushes underneath you, and then your butt gets cold.
You
or
have
whatever.
no loft.
Yeah. So you add that little down jacket underneath you, and your loft. And I was warm, super warm the rest of the trip. So pro tip there.
Works,
and when you put your jacket on in the morning, it's warm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I put my pants and my jacket in my sleeping bag, my socks.
I did that quite a bit. Like,
I did my socks.
as soon as the alarm would go off, I would just grab my clothes and stick them in the bag for a little while, and it heated them up pretty quick.
Yeah.
It's one of the nice things about a down bag is that, man, for about 30 seconds, it's kind of cold in your bag, but they heat up real quick.
Dude. It's crazy, man.
Yeah,
crazy. But
it's nice.
Anyway, so
we
back
had a
to
sweet camping spot too.
We did,
It's nice.
man. We did.
Yeah.
So anyway, back to kind of the storyline here. We kind of, it gets dark. We find that these deer are moving the direction we need them to and everything. We're real excited. We're going to get back up in the morning and glass them again.
Because it's the next day's opening day.
Yeah.
But we don't have a great plan of what to do. I think we know.
We knew the wind wasn't.
We knew the wind
gonna
wouldn't be good for that opening day. We really hadn't thought out extensively what the wind's going to do the next few days.
Yeah.
So we decided to get up and glass again, and I think that's when I really got cactus raged, is that next morning. I don't know for sure.
Yeah.
I got cactus raged a few times, but still just kind of confirmed that that's where the deer were. I mean, that was the spot. And we got to thinking about it and got to looking at it on the map, and then when you realize, man, this thing is over a mile from a county road.
Yeah.
It's way back there.
Yeah.
And
I mean, and that's in a place that doesn't get hunted super hard.
yeah, rural South Dakota.
Yeah.
Hunting pressure is relative. We talked to, actually, Spencer Newhart, the meat eater. We talked to him a little bit before we headed up here because he's from South Dakota. And Spencer's like, yeah, man, you might have quite a bit of pressure. They might,
He said, I can't remember
you
exactly.
might have quite a bit of pressure this week. They're guys from the road. I can't do Spencer very good. That low register is just hard to hit. But he was like, something about it might be a madhouse or something like that, right?
Yeah.
He was like, bro, if this is a madhouse to you, I can't wait to see what it's like on a slow day. You know.
Yeah.
But there were some guys around, a lot of
But
antelope
shout out to
hunters.
Spencer too. Everything he said was right on point.
Yeah, for
like
sure.
he knew, he gave us lots of good information and tips and thoughts, and it was all around on point, man.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
thanks for that, Spencer.
But our idea of pressure and his idea of pressure are a lot
Oh,
different.
for sure, yeah.
And that's okay. There's no right or wrong to it, but
No.
I thought it was awesome. You
Yeah.
know, like as far as how much pressure there was. We saw some guys, maybe like 2 different groups of hunters that we knew were probably deer hunters. Outside of that, it was antelope hunters mostly. that we saw.
birds.
Or
Or
birds,
birds,
lots
yeah.
of bird hunters. Yeah, that's true. But that first morning, kind of figured out that's where we wanted to be. And from there, decided to pack up our camp and try to head and camp closer to where the deer were. Wasn't that our first objective? Didn't we go and set up camp and then decide to go try to look around and find like plan Bs and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Wasn't that kind of the idea?
Yeah, I think that's right.
So-
We went to set up camp, and like Jack said, we had a really sweet spot.
Yeah.
Man. We found a windmill that wasn't working, and it had like a little corral or something right beside it, and it was had grown up some tumbleweed and stuff inside of it. And so it gave us a good north wind block, which we had a lot of north winds there.
Mm-hmm.
And it was pretty much our camp for the next 5 days or whatever.
Yeah.
It was good, man. It was
Yeah.
good.
Thank
So-
goodness for the cold because there was no prairie rattlers.
Yeah. That you saw. KC,
That's true.
KC actually saw bears, and I saw prairie rattlers. So.
Yes, I saw what had to be evidence of black bears. Had to be.
It's weird.
There's no other thing it could have been. I mean, there's just so many things that duke like a bear. And that's bears and
that could be a
humans.
song, man.
Yeah, it
Duke
could be.
like a bear.
I wasn't thinking it that way. Duking like a bear, duking like a bear.
Is that beer
What's
or
that in
bear?
there? I think it's beaver hair. Duking like a bear. Yeah, but there had to be black bears around. Not by our camp, but definitely something going on
Yeah.
in some of the places, which makes sense because there's agriculture. It's endemic habitat for a black bear. You
And
know?
we're super close to Montana at that point, so.
Yeah, for sure. But anyways, got that camp set up, and I think from there, didn't we drive around? We had established that we weren't going to be able to hunt there that night at the deer spot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm having a hard time remembering.
Yeah, no, so, we could make a long story short here and say that the next several days were kind of hard to remember because it was all the same of us just driving and desperately trying to find places to hunt.
And talking each other out of going and hunting the honey hole.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, that was really what was going on.
It's like, man, this is like, seriously, there was one afternoon where I talked KC into hunting it and then out of it in the same 20-minute
That
span.
happened.
You know what I mean?
That happened. Yes.
I was like, gosh, I just can't. You want to go in there so bad because it's just buck fest.
And
in
we
there.
did have, I think maybe day 3 of hunting. I think we had a morning where we were able to barely intrude, right, or something like that.
Yeah, I got to go in there and be pretty close, but not danger close, really.
Is that what'd you do the day that Jack and I hunted on top of the hay bales? What day was that?
That was like the
That
first
was the
morning.
first. That was the.
wasn't it?
That was
Morning 2.
Yeah, so it wasn't opening day. It was the morning after.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
first morning we hunted a
You
stand.
ended up-
I hunted that dead cottonwood.
Yeah, you pushed in barely.
Yeah, I was
and
just
still almost shot a deer.
Yeah, I had 2 does come to 25 yards. I didn't even think I was going to hardly see anything.
Yeah.
I thought I might see a few, but
It's
from
observation
distance,
sit.
it was definitely observation system. I had 2 does. I didn't even get a stand set up. I got 8 foot up on a limb. I was kind of running late. I got y'all dropped off in time, but it's a long way back over to which is another problem we had the whole time, was we had to hunt close to each other, but out there, dude, close is another relative term.
Yeah.
It's like, dadgummit, some of these places are far from
You know what's
each
funny?
other.
The closest we ever hunted together was, I guess, that day 3 or 4 spot where we all walked in. Jack and I walked in a mile and an eighth, and you walked in a mile and a quarter.
Yeah.
We're pretty close.
That's
that
right,
evening.
man. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, anyway, I had a buck that morning as well, like 60 yards, but he wasn't super big. He was just a little 1.5-year-old.
Okay, people.
Ooh, and so we ended up over the course of the next few days, just really struggling to find what we were calling buckholes, not to be confused with other things.
Yeah.
But the places that bucks lived, right? So like you're looking for, in a lot of states, you're looking for a bachelor group of bucks on a property. We're looking for a place that holds like several bachelor groups. You know what I mean? Because it's just big country, right? And so these buckholes are similar to the place we found the first night, just small patches of habitat that are far from the road and hold bucks. And here's the thing, is it sounds simple, right? Like go to the map, look at a place that's 3/4 to a mile and a half in that has good timber and that hasn't been molested much, and it's going to have bucks in it, right? But no, because like you just mentioned, you hunted a mile and an eighth or whatever. I hunted a mile and a quarter back in these two drainages leading up to like alfalfa on one side and planted wheat on the other. Like good stuff, man. Super remote. And we both go in there and hunt. Y'all didn't have a very good hunt at all.
We saw a couple mule deer does. The wind was just real terrible. The thermals were bad that day.
Right.
And our stand was just perfectly terrible for thermals. Yours was a little bit of better setup.
Yeah,
it was probably the hardest tree to get in possible for KC and I.
Was it?
Well, mine was pretty easy. Jack wore cowboy boots, and it really made it tough on him.
Yeah, that's a thing.
It was hard. It wasn't an easy hang. But
by the way, y'all get ready because Jack's about to create a Jack's Cowboy Boots Instagram profile. So y'all need to go follow that.
Yeah,
here
it's
in a
gonna
little
be
bit.
awesome. Great.
Anyway, and you know they're still apparently getting used, even though
apparently for some reason
they're like skis.
Yeah.
So.
It's fun.
But I had a pretty good hunt there, and I saw 13 does. It's like, man, if you see that many deer, how is it that you see no bucks, you know?
Man, I feel like mule deer are just a touch more like a herd animal, too.
Yeah.
So it's almost as if you take that bachelor group, doe family group thing and, like, grow it exponentially. You know what I mean? Like,
well, I mean, that's true. I only saw 3 different groups of deer for all 13. So,
yeah. But, and that I think that that was part of our journey in trying to learn and understand what would hold mule deer versus whitetail. But that's not something we still really have figured out great.
No, we haven't.
It's tough to do in that country, man.
And we haven't completely figured out why are bucks there, you know?
Yeah.
Because, like, pretty much anywhere there was some habitat that you would say there's probably deer in there was deer.
Oh,
but
for
not
sure.
all of them had does. Not all of them had bucks. You know what I mean? So it's kind of a weird thing. So
Habitat's the limiting factor up there. It's kind of funny because I feel like where we live and hunt, a lot of times food is a limiting factor.
Yeah.
But up there, there's food everywhere, pretty much. I mean, yeah, you got some grassland stuff and some grazed stuff that's not that great, but like there's ag around,
Right.
so there's going to be food. It's just, is there a spot for a deer to find a hole to live in?
Yeah.
You know, that's what limits it. So you're driving around all the time, you're like, man, deer would eat that so much. But can they find a place to nap during the day in the shade?
Right.
You know, that's kind of what you're trying to find to hunt.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what we did. We drove, man, I mean, one day we drove at least 6 hours.
I
Probably
hated it.
Most of the, you know.
It's mostly my fault, too. So
A couple of days, there was lots of driving.
Yeah.
Maybe 2 or 3 days there was a lot of driving in the middle of the day. And we're trying to desperately find somewhere that has a bed to feed pattern, essentially, like you said. Because, I mean, you can look at plenty of spots, at least where we were at, that have cover or habitat, like you said, or not habitat, agriculture, like you said. But if it doesn't have cover, this time of year, it can get pretty warm up there, you know? So, like, other than a pronghorn, things are going to need some shade. And so we were able to find both those two different things, but we weren't able to match them up very well and find a place to get between. And we wanted to hunt out of tree stands. I mean, people go up there, they want to stalk mule deer and stuff like that. And that's cool. And I want to do that too sometime. But I was going up there to kill a good whitetail, you know what I mean?
Going up to kill a good deer.
Good deer, yeah.
And
hunting a tree stand is the way to do it,
Yeah,
man.
we talked about this a lot. And it's like, you know, we can use this as an opportunity to do something completely new and different and probably not kill anything. Or we can do what we know how to do and adapt it to our situation and maybe have a pretty good chance.
Yeah.
You know, and ambush hunting is something that we know.
Yeah.
It's something that I don't want to say we're good at, but we do a whole bunch of it.
Right.
You know, so
Experienced.
yeah, why not just take what you know and apply it to the situation? And I understand you need to be adaptive, and we definitely adapted in certain scenarios.
Yeah.
But like, dude, sitting back a mile and glassing up a whole bunch of Badland stuff and trying to find a mule deer in a hole and sneak up there and shoot him. I tried it once, right? Found that little forky.
Yeah.
And didn't glass him up. Just walked up, saw him, and bent down, drew him a bow, and stood up, and he was gone. You know, like that would happen 30 times before I got to shoot.
I know.
You know, like I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I want to put myself in high odds scenarios. So that's why.
Well, and another thing about hunting from the ground or spot and stalk type stuff is like, and I've killed deer off the ground, man, spot and stalk, that kind of thing. But like, dude, a lot of the time, especially with the light winds we had early in the trip, you're going to be shooting a shot that is either through grass, through brush, iffy angle, or, at a deer that pretty much knows you're there.
Yeah.
You know, like the shots are just not nearly as effective a lot of times. And like, dude, people are thinking, well, so-and-so does that, whatever.
Yeah.
But like, the thing is, and they do.
Congrats to those guys.
they also probably bump a lot of deer.
Yeah.
And have a lot of eyes out there looking for the deer.
Mm-hmm.
And they also probably mess up some shots and don't put it on video.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
Guarantee you.
Because that's just ground hunting.
Unless somebody else kills it later in the season, then it's okay to put on video.
You can definitely do that.
I think one of the things, too, with on the ground is that, for the most part, you're going to have much further shots. And you would, going back to put yourself in high-odd situations, I had some particular things happen later in the hunt that were, some close stuff. But mostly from the ground, your encounters are like 40 yards usually.
That's a good point. I hadn't even thought about that. Like last year on the Texas public land buck that I shot, he was like 7 yards.
Yeah.
You don't get that shot off on the ground.
How many times were you like 10 yards or less from deer this week?
Dude,
a couple times. Us too.
The 13 mule deer,
Yeah.
5 of them were at 5 yards.
Yeah.
Y'all see the video.
Uh-huh.
It's freaking crazy, man.
Jack and I had 2 bucks at like 9 yards.
Yeah.
Right? And
Spikosaurus.
yeah.
Spikosaurus.
Like there's just, you don't get 9 yards from deer very often on the ground. Out of a tree stand, it can happen pretty regularly.
You don't get drawn on them at 9 yards. They will see you, you
Yeah.
know. I mean, obviously, if they look the other way, you can get lucky. But, man, it's they see everything ground level. And it's just – anyway, we're kind of justifying what we were doing. But, like, we definitely – these are the reasons why we want it to be between deer and their food source in a tree.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, anyway, we ended up maybe day 4 or 5. We ended up, I guess 5. We ended up on the trip. We ended up going and trying some new stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that new stuff for a second, though. Because day 4, we looked at one of those places and decided it wasn't worth hunting.
Yeah.
And I think that's the day we had our just road trip looking for public land and ended up not hunting at all that evening, which was just we were all kind of just blah after the end of that day. It was just not a great day.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that we weren't paying hard enough attention or asking the right questions. And then on day 5, we were kind of in desperation because we'd given ourselves a deadline of like what time we needed to make a decision as to where and how to hunt. And that's kind of what made us hunt there, because like, okay, we don't want to end up hanging stands at 5 p.m. trying to, kill deer within the hour or whatever. We want to get in there in plenty of time. So we ended up in this area, and we had found a spot for Tyler and I to both hunt that was from 10 miles apart or something like that, fairly close, right? And the place that Jack and I hung was a place that we'd kind of turned our nose up at previously because we had seen a drainage that led to agriculture. We pulled up and scouted the agriculture, and we thought it was like some type of millet or like Dookie Milo or something
it was
with
like,
weeds in it.
It looked like a baby Milo.
Yeah, and it had like a little head on it, but it wasn't like...
Kind of also looked like Big Blue Stem or something.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It just kind of looked like a just hay grazer that didn't work out or something.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, the next day we said, all right, whatever, we're going to go hunt it, just see what's there, you know, because it's a great drainage with a good creek and some trees. Well, ends up, this stuff that we're thinking is the Milo that we're like, well, that's dumb, is a wildlife mix that is planted by the farmer. He plants some of it on some property that people can hunt and some that people can't. And this stuff is the food source. There are deer moving at 4:30 to go to this stuff to eat, you know, like 3 hours before dark.
Yeah.
And
y'all found that out because you hunted it.
Yeah, that's right. And we wouldn't have known that if we hadn't hunted it. Now, under further examination, we figure out, oh, what this is there's some type of Milo-ish type stuff in there for birds, but there's also 2 different types of brassicas in there for deer. There's a big old turnip and then like a horseradish or something like that. You know, either way, they're eating the green stuff out of there. And, dude...
I think we should leave that one in there.
You think so? Hold on. Dude, Jack and I saw deer all evening long right there. There were mule deer does. There were little whitetail bucks. There was little whitetail bucks chasing mule deer does. It was kind of crazy. It was a lot of fun.
Don't you dare talk about a crossbreed.
Hybridization, man. Isn't it weird that people like to rage about that?
Yeah.
Like, it's just a mule deer. But you didn't have quite as good of a hunt, and you thought you were going to hunt the better spot, and we're kind of feeling guilty about us. Yeah, us going over there, and it was vice versa.
Yep. I'm an idiot.
Well, you thought you were hunting alfalfa or something, right?
Yeah, we had decided there was an alfalfa field, and that I was going to be hunting a creek system real close to it. And the thing is, what we had been kind of dealing with were these light and variable winds, which I'll try to call LV winds from now on. So in case you are listening now, you can catch on to that later.
Does that mean the Raiders won this weekend?
I don't know.
LV
Las Vegas? Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So anyway, we're having these LV winds, and what was happening is, especially right at dark, you're talking about almost a 0 mile per hour wind. And when you're hunting in these creek systems or these little draws, the thermals, as the sun goes down, when big bucks come out, are going to work down the draw. They're going to suck your wind and your scent down the draw as the thermals sink down those draws. So what we're having issues with is that a lot of these draws head out at the ag. You know, the ag would be planted up high, and the draws, you know, obviously work down to the low ground where all the brush and stuff is that deer bed in. So we're having trouble in the evenings hunting deer heading to ag because they've got a wind in their face with these LV winds. So we found this place that actually I was able to hunt almost like a spider web of these headed out draws that were like 4 draws that headed out in this particular public, and then came down into the main system, and then another 200 yards or so down, I was able to hunt deer that were moving from that to what we assumed was an alfalfa field. Well, turns out, as I'm walking in, this was a day we drove a lot, obviously, and we were just baked, and we just couldn't assess very accurately that this was not actually alfalfa. It was some kind of a hay grazer that had been recently cut. And I talk about this in the video a little bit. I had a bad hunt. I saw 5 whitetail deer, and none of them came from where I projected that they would come from, which is where all these draws head out. And so my thoughts were that the hay grazer had been recently cut, and so it had new growth coming up, and the deer were eating it, but that because it was a hay grazer, there was no like summertime food source in there that was there all summer that created a big draw for all the deer in the area to be there. So I just had like a few of those whitetail does that were around going towards that hay field, essentially just to eat some of the fresh green stuff that had come up,
Yeah.
And what we were finding is when we had alfalfa or something like that had been planted all summer and been getting cut and stuff like that, it's like a big draw for a lot of deer, So had a pretty bad hunt. And I say that, 5 deer in East Texas on public land, we're like, oh my goodness, we had the greatest hunt ever.
Dude, we'll spend an hour telling you why we saw some does,
Yeah, for sure.
A-dope style right there, man. But that was a tough night for you.
But y'all had a good hunt.
Yeah, we had a good hunt, man. We saw a lot of deer. The next day, is when things got real interesting.
Yes.
Day 6 of the hunt.
Baby,
How
day
appropriate.
6.
How appropriate, man.
Yeah.
Finally, the evening of day 6, we get our wind.
Yep.
We've been
what happened
waiting.
that morning? Do you remember?
I think we glassed around a little bit, spent some time walking around midday, and we were just kind of biding our time
Yeah.
to that evening, I think.
Joe Biden our time?
Yeah, for sure. Forgot what we were doing, really.
Jack, don't say anything about how you're voting for him. Gosh,
Dude,
you always
kids
have
these
to
days.
do this. You always have to say
Kids, but
something. Spencer Newhart just texted me.
what does he
By
have to
the
say?
way, he wants to know what I killed.
Oh, dadgummit.
Sorry, bro. It's teaser. You
Yeah,
don't get to know either.
That's right, dude. You ain't on the inside.
No.
Which you probably just dropped a little teaser in the podcast.
How about it? You did. Dang, I didn't think about that.
Dang.
Well, we're leading up to the day 6 stuff.
We're pretty much
So
here, aren't
we're
we?
Here.
You're
We're
pretty
here
much
to
here.
it. So, at this point in time, I'm going to kind of hunt slightly more conservative than y'all are.
Yeah.
Y'all are going to push in pretty hard that day. So, Jack went with you. He'd been with me most of the time. And he went with you to go film. And I stayed up kind of high, but I ended up setting up on that little clump of trees that we saw bucks going to. But you and Jack had pushed into kind of like the buck hole.
Yeah,
right?
the buck hole.
Yeah.
We had.
Yeah.
So
Pushed into the buck hole. Call y'all the suppository team.
I wasn't going to say it, but you did say it. So, yeah, we did push into the buck hole, and it was scary, man. Dude, this is I just live for this stuff. You know, it's like game day, man. It's
Yeah.
like when I played football, it's game day, man, and you just got this like butterfly in your stomach all day, you know. And it was the same thing for me on that day, where like the whole day I knew the wind was going to do what I needed to that evening. So the whole day I'm just like the day before, I'm like, oh, we were going to kill. And then, what?
We should talk about midday a little bit more.
Yeah. Okay.
We
for
kind of
sure.
had a little bit of a party midday.
So so the day before, I'm like, I see the wind prediction, and I'm like, oh, I like tell my wife, I'm like, oh, we're killing tomorrow night, you know, like just so you know, we're coming home, you know. And then of course Sunday gets there, and I'm like, oh, I don't know, you know, it might not happen, you know.
Yeah.
And so, but like something happened, and we all like turned this swag switch on about.
We turned on
1
Res
PM.
Radio.
We
We turned on Res Radio, and that's what got us going, dude. They had a double header of Michael Jackson, and it was just on after that.
Yeah, we were bumping out on the plains, dude. The wind was like, it was a nice, you know, it was a warm day finally, because we had been having like 55-degree days.
Sunny and 65.
Which, like, people listening in Michigan right now are laughing at us, but like, if it ain't 70 in the middle of the day, like, we are bundled, you
Put
know.
me a jacket on.
Yeah, so we did our first like bath.
Mm-hmm.
We took our 5-gallon water deal and you know, some no scent shampoo, and just took baths pretty much underneath that thing, and we felt fresh. We took our boots off. We were basically out there, like, I know this sounds bad, but we were out there in our underwears on the plains.
Getting us some vitamin D,
we
man.
were getting some vitamin D, you know, just getting sunshine, and just thinking about buckholes, you know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we had,
And so-
it reminded me a little bit, if you've ever seen the movie Gone in 60 Seconds.
Yeah.
Like they have this like thing they do before like their big heist of the cars. They all sit around and listen to this like specific song. I felt like that's what we were doing. We were getting into our mindset of like, it's time to go get it done.
Yeah, when Bon Jovi came on and made us feel like real men, you know.
Yeah.
We were like, man, this guy's like 5 foot, you know, or whatever. So we're actually men, you know. It made us feel good. So, and we only say that because Bon Jovi's, you know, got way more money than us.
Yeah, that's right.
Anyway, so we decide to go into the buckhole. And we know that's about to happen. We party, we go in, and we kind of like walk in together. It's a pretty good haul. It's like, you said it was like a mile or so, probably?
Probably a mile from where we had to park the truck.
For us or whatever. And so we drop K.C. off, essentially. We go to this, like, there's this one big draw that comes out of kind of this the Buckhole, pretty much, heads up to the ag. And so we dropped K.C. off at the head of this draw, kind of to the west of where we're going in. And then we just worked down this draw, and it is super steep. It's way steeper than I thought. I knew one side was steep. The other side was even steeper than I thought. And we worked down in there, and it's like, it's weird because we have one of the confidence things that we had going on was that it wasn't just the right wind. It was like a 10 to 15 all afternoon. Mm-hmm. And so we're like, oh, this is perfect.
Thermals aren't going to be a thing.
No thermals. You're going to have sound cover and that kind of thing. Well, we walk into this canyon. It's so deep. There's no wind down in the canyon. And so, and like I said, it's been freezing every night. It's fall in South Dakota right now. I mean, it's like there are hardly any leaves on the trees right now. All the ash and hackberry have dropped leaves, and so we're just crunching, dude. And all of a sudden, this thing busts in front of us, and it's the biggest cottontail you've ever seen. And like,
which I saw the next day, by the way.
Did you?
I saw that cottontail.
Gosh, dude, he did it. He would bust and run like 20 yards, disappear, and then you'd forget about him, and you walk real slow for the next like minute and a half, and then it would bust again, and it would scare you every time. It did it like 5 times. Me and Jack are in there, and dude, I'll give props to Jack, old Squeaky Pack Jack. He was super quiet in them cowboy boots.
Did he wear cowboy boots?
He wore cowboy boots into the canyon, and I don't know how he was not sliding because this thing was steep, but he wasn't sliding, and he was being quiet, dude. He was doing a heel toe, stepping over stuff with his toe. I mean,
right,
he was
dude.
Being accurate.
Heck yeah.
But anyway, we get in there pretty quiet.
Why didn't you do that with me, Jack? I'm just kidding.
We get into the very bottom of this canyon, and it opens up into our Buckhole. And I didn't know exactly where I was going to hang, but the tree that I thought I was going to hang in on the aerial was not in my favorite spot.
Yeah.
And so once we got down in there, and so we're like walking, and all of a sudden we get to this main crossing trail that's heading perpendicular to the canyon. Mm-hmm. And it's running along this belt of timber that you talked about that's in our Buckhole there. And I turned around and I told Jack, I said, this is the main trail right here. And we still had probably 60 or 70 yards of timber in front of us. And I just had a good feeling. It's one of those things, like, I don't consider myself an expert, but I have enough experience that I'm blessed to get to go on these trips. We've talked about it on this trip, you know?
Yeah.
And so, like, when I see that, I have a very, very good feeling that that's the main trail. And so at that point, I was like, when we cross this thing, keep your hands up, don't touch anything. We're not trying to lay the ground scent down, but we need to cross it because I need to be able to shoot back into this belt a little bit further. And so we end up setting up like 5-7 yards from this trail, but it gave us an opportunity to get a good window for like 40 yards the other direction, kind of. Yep. So we had shots back that way. So anyway, we get to going up this tree, and it's a, what do we decide? There's some kind of ash, right? They're not like your typical like river swamp ash that we've seen down in the bottom of, Texas or whatever stuff, but like, it looks like an ash tree of some sort, man.
It's hard to tell. They kind of look like hickories a little bit. They kind of look like ash.
They look a lot like hickories, man.
Yeah.
But anyway, this weird tree.
Might have been like a beech or something, like something we don't have around the house.
Right.
So it's hard to
that was
tell.
Definitely something different, that I've never seen. And they have a ton of limbs on them, little bitty limbs, not big ones. And so kind of difficult, like, not saying, that we were doing any habitat manipulation necessarily, but like if you bumped a dead one, it was going to break off, It
kind of would remind you a little bit like a blackjack oak, that kind of limb structure.
Yeah. And so we work our way up there and finally get up in the tree, or I do, get up in the tree. I set Jack's platform, and I'm starting to pull like camera stuff up, and then I see something out of the corner of my eye, and we've got a buck at 45 yards. And I'm like, oh, man. So I tell Jack, hey, buck. He's like, is it big? I said, no, it's little. Just be still. And Jack's real good. This is one thing Jack does really good. When you say be still, Jack will be still for the next eternity.
Yes.
Like, he will not move. I mean, if he's looking up and he's got a crick in his neck, he's just going to keep looking up, And so, like, I realized that, he needs to be still, but then but that the buck doesn't have a clue that we're here. He's not looking at us. So when that buck kind of like noses down, I tell him, hey, just relax, but be still. And so he does. buck goes on by finally, and then we get up in the tree quick after that because it feels like it's getting golden hour because it's kind of down in there, and so I tell him just to hurry up and get up here, and we get everything up in the tree except for my bow, and we're kind of putting the camera arm on and everything, and I didn't realize how loose I made Jack stand, but it was pretty wobbly. Yeah. And so anyway, get up in there, and we start seeing some deer moving out in the native grass stuff, like out kind of behind our buckhole timber, and they are so slow poking. Like I see 3 bucks working together, and it's taking them forever, dude, to do anything. And then we see 2 does, and we're just having good conversation, kind of talking real quiet, obviously whispering or whatever. But anyway, we are just hanging out, talking, and all of a sudden we hear something walking, and it's pretty much, we looked at each other, and we pretty much both, I could tell, knew it was a deer. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
you could tell it was a deer walking. And so, like, I kind of turned my head, and out of the corner of my eye, I can kind of see that the buck is not a giant. And so I told Jack, I think it's just a little buck. And he kind of came out. He's pretty close at this point. And he kind of comes out from behind this thick stuff. And I'm like, I just said, I'm going to shoot this deer. and Jack, went into immediate shake mode.
It's something I've noticed about Jack, too. If at any point in time there's a buck that, or there's going to be a shot opportunity, Jack, he gets a little buck fever.
I love it, dude.
Not bad enough to, cause any problems, but it's just kind of fun,
I'm the same way. I can't tell you how bad I was shaking in the Gila when that bull was staring there.
Man, yeah.
But even deer and stuff, dude, I shake hard when you shoot deer. And anyway, so I go to grab my bow, and this buck is coming down the main trail, but he's coming from a different direction than we expected him from. And now that we've been in there, I know why, I think. Because there's definitely deer bedded down there, but I didn't know for sure. I did know there was deer bedded to the east, but not necessarily to the west. And so he's kind of coming the wrong direction. So we're not completely set up to do anything that way. And he pretty quickly walks into what I assume is our wind, was what he's having trouble with. But I had set up close enough to that trail that I thought with the stiff enough wind that we had, that I would blow over the top of that trail, possibly. And so I think that truly is what ended up helping us out in this situation, because he started stomping a little bit. I could hear him stomping, when he got downwind of us, and then very quickly stopped.
And kind of relaxed.
And got super relaxed, man. Yeah. It was weird. And I think it was just a matter of, he either caught our ground scent from where we walked in, or just some kind of weird, quick thermal drifted down or something into him for just a brief second. Yeah. But he didn't. The wind was blowing over the top of him, I have to think.
That's one of the fun things though about going somewhere and having, what's the right words? Just not really trying to shoot the giantest buck you can.
Yeah.
That's a good Trump word there.
Yeah, I like it.
But
hugest buck.
Just having lower standards.
Yeah.
You get to hunt deer that just aren't quite as sharp
yeah.
as the big old daddies, and you can get away with stuff like
that.
And it's nice.
Like you said, pressure's a relative term, you know, and so a buck wins you in East Texas woods, man, you're probably not going to see that buck for a while.
It's that, and that's weird because in ETX, even the little baby spikies, they know. It's you ain't even seen a deer season. How do you know what's going on?
It's like mom taught them, you know, or whatever. It's weird. Yes. But anyway, so he relaxes and goes back to kind of just poking and feeding, doing his thing, and works kind of down off the main trail at this point. I think, I don't know if it may have been the ground scent, but he kind of pushes off the main trail, but he's still going the same direction as the trail kind of. And he gets, before we can get the camera finally set up and he's relaxed enough for us to move a little bit more and stuff, and I get my bow kind of around to get squared up to him and everything, he's probably at 20 yards or so, maybe a little bit under 20 yards. And Jack gets the camera on him. Then he goes over, and he's behind this big tree limb stuff that I don't have a whole lot of shots or any shots really in. And he goes over to this tree, and he's kind of faced by this tree, and I'm thinking, man, I told Jack if he takes 3 more steps, I can half squat and shoot him through this gap.
He went backwards too, right?
Yeah.
Or didn't, like, we were hoping he would come more out in front of me, pretty much.
Right.
Which you wouldn't have had to squat.
Well,
Right?
no, I was gonna have to squat that direction too.
okay.
Yeah, that was what I was talking about. Is I had a window if he'd have kept going towards your direction, kind of. I had a window that I could squat and shoot in. So I told Jack 3 more steps, I can shoot him. And I said, "Are you on him?" I couldn't really hear him, but he was on him, and he ends up kind of seeing this little tree and kind of turning away from us and just raking this tree for like probably a good minute or so.
He smelled you and got mad.
He got mad. That's
Got
right.
mad.
He knew there was an alpha in the woods, you know. So maybe 2 even.
Yeah.
So then he like rakes this tree for a while, and then ends up going kind of away from us. And I had ranged this like mule deer looking trail up the canyon that we came in on up the other side. And I guess I missed the trail, but where I was ranging was not where, like, I ranged it 25 yards, and I guess I didn't know exactly where the trail was because of the grass and stuff, but I just was like, it was an open spot that I ranged, so it was 25 yards. I knew that. So he starts heading up the hill, up the drainage, up the canyon, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to get a shot here. And he gets going up the hill, and he's not in my range spot, but I figured on 5 yards more. So I figured him at 30 yards, and I had to still squat to shoot over there too. So I kind of squatted down and put it on him, and I'll let it go.
Ripshaw McGraw.
And it was
Jack's
Ripshaw
new
McGraw.
favorite for sure.
So it was in the crease. He was quartered away pretty heavy.
Smoked him.
But it was crease, and got all the front of the lungs and all the arteries up there in the front, kind of, it came out like basically the point of the shoulder on the opposite side or whatever. And so anyway, it was like butter, dude. It was insane, man. Still shooting those day 6 that I shot last year, man. The whole setup's a day 6 arrow setup and broadhead, and it made. Dude, I can't wait to listen to it actually on the video, because I can remember exactly how it sounded, but it was just those heavy arrows make my bow quiet.
Oh, yeah.
And then you also like hit a spot that's a pretty soft spot behind the shoulder, and it's just like, it sounds like a hot butter knife through butter, or whatever. Hot knife through butter. It's like whatever they say. It's like, it's just like. And so it was really cool though. But the arrow, I couldn't see the arrow when I glassed it. But he ran off up the hill, and when he gets to the top and like crests over into the next part of the canyon, I could have swore I saw this blood shoot out the right side of him, which I hit him on the left side. And so I didn't say anything to Jack about it. And we're sitting there just partying. Jack starts shaking, and we're laughing and excited, and we're hitting each other and stuff, And I actually knocked him out of the stand.
I almost just passed out of the
Dude,
stand.
yeah, because he was like corner eye looking the whole time, and just he goes, I'm almost passed out, dude. And so anyway, we're partying and stuff, and then Jack goes, I'm pretty sure I saw blood shoot out of his side there. And I was like, dude, me too, So that was, when you hear that and you didn't say anything about it and you thought the same thing, you're like, oh, this is good, This is a good sign. So we were pretty sure he was going to be dead somewhere not too far. And so these deer were still out in this CRP field, out through all the timber, and I could see them kind of all out there still if I glassed a few of them, and I knew they were probably still in the same groups together. So I ended up saying, okay, let's just calm down, do a little post-shot interview, do some B-roll, break down real quick but super quiet, and get out of here before it gets too dark so that KC can come in here, because the next morning was a super good wind to hunt big bucks on down in there. And I was like, we can get out of here. And KC, these big bucks will be the last ones, so even if we did spook a deer, it probably wouldn't be a big buck. We can get out of here, go up to the hill, and there was a place that we could sit where we wouldn't be able to see over into the canyon where my buck had run off. So hopefully it wouldn't bust him if he was, still bedded up or something like that. And then where I thought we might be able to kind of see what was going on your side. Yeah. And so we break down, get out of there real quick, hop up the hill. We're sitting there, and we're just having a good time, man. We're just having good conversation, talking, watching the sun go down, man, kind of your direction. And basically, you know, just having a good time, you know, and excited that we're pretty sure we got a deer on the ground, you know. And so I don't want to, like, we kind of could watch your hunt a little bit. So, like, I don't want to steal any details from you,
Sure.
so you can go ahead and talk about that.
From there on, y'all said you kind of dropped me off. We all walked in on the same trail, and then y'all continued on whenever I stopped. I hunted pretty much the same drainage y'all did, but I was hunting deer that were coming from a different direction for the most part. I'd initially intended hanging a saddle up in a tree that was kind of sparse, but I thought I could make it happen. Then I got there and realized there was like no strategic advantage to being in a tree, because it's one of those situations that you run into in country where there's terrain, especially in open country terrain, where sometimes you'll hang in a tree, but you're eye level with the deer.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, what am I doing here? You know what I mean? Like, all I'm doing is making it harder on myself to beat because I'm up in a tree.
Not to mention that tree was like the size of 2 baseball bats put together.
Yeah, I've hung in smaller trees, but it's been a while.
Yeah.
I thought maybe I could get a little cover, but I got up there, it's like, man, if this thing was 15 foot above the deer, I'd hang in it all day.
And there's no leaves on that tree, too.
Yeah, no leaves at all.
Yeah.
But being eye level or barely above the deer, like, they're going to see you there for sure.
Skyline City.
I got down to that tree within like 5 minutes and decided to go sit in those clumps of bushes that the deer we'd seen like 6 days earlier walked to, the bucks. Well, ends up those bushes are American plums, I think. They're different than our little Chickasaws that we have at home. They're kind of thicker and the leaves are a little bit different, but kind of the same principle where it creates like this little habitat pocket, right? So the one I set up in was probably, I don't know, 15 by 15 clump of trees. And inside there's like kind of tunnels or trails or whatever. Deer spend a lot of time in there, and there's rubs on these things. So you kind of can tell, especially on like a bed to food pattern. I haven't done this a ton because I don't get to hunt that type of pattern a lot, but it seems like bucks will have a spot they like to stop and kind of do their gregarious things that they do, where like they want to like leave scent and rub on trees and like just see what other bucks are around.
Yep.
It's like, and once I walked over there, I was like, man, this is going to be the spot. But the tree I wanted to hang in was like 20 yards from there, and I was going to have, 20, 25-yard shots. Being right here, setting up in this thing, I might have a deer on top of my head, and that's cool, but you don't always want to shoot every deer that you encounter. So if that happens, like, you might end up with a doe or a buck on top of you that you don't want to shoot and you don't know what to do about. And lo and behold, the deer, even though it was a warm day, were moving pretty early, and like at, 5 o'clock or so, here comes 4 does and a little buck. I say little, he's a decent buck. They kind of surprised me at like 50 yards. That's the other thing with where I'm sitting, is I'm kind of still in the draw just a little bit, so I can only see like 50 yards any direction, which seems like quite a bit, but whenever you're in big, wide open country, it feels like you are just in a room. You know what I mean? Like, it just feels like you can't see nothing.
Yep.
So here I am, and these deer are walking directly at me. I'm actually standing up because I just started to put on my jacket, which I wore natural gear during this little hunt. I wore quite a bit of natural gear. I wore some Sitka stuff too this week. And
this is not a paid advertisement, by the way.
This is not. This is just personal experience. That natural gear stuff's money on the ground, dude. It's really good. So put on my jacket. These deer catch me standing up. I kind of slink down whenever they're kind of like halfway not looking. They never were like spooked or like really aware. They're just kind of looking my direction. I think deer expected there to be other deer in that spot anyways where I was sitting. So like seeing a little movement or whatever probably wasn't the biggest thing. And I think they always look that direction just to see who's over there. So I kind of slunk down.
I like it.
Slunked it.
Slunk.
And try to let these deer go past. Well, the does don't pay me hardly any mind. They walk by at 20 yards. Well, the buck that's following them has to just really investigate. I think that I had my camera arm strapped to like 12 of these little bushes, sapling plums, and kind of just all strapped it up together. And I was filming the deer, of course. The camera's looking straight down the pipe at the sun, at the deer, and I think he might have seen a reflection. Might have saw a reflection. I don't know what might have seen
Yep.
Off the camera, and that's really what got him, because I really wasn't moving too much. So being a curious buck like he was, it's like, well, what is going on over there? Well, he ends up walking like 9 yards away, trying to get my wind, and it's day 6 of the hunt. I don't know if I'm making great decisions at this point in time or not, but I made the decision to say, I don't want this deer to smell me. I think that's the worst thing. That's how he's going to be the most spooked, is if he smells me. So I go, "Brat, brat," and kind of grunt at him to try to get him to stop, and then maybe like get scared that I'm a big buck or something and run off. Well, he just freezes, and then I snort wheeze at him, and he runs off and takes the does with him, and they go back down the drainage. I'm like, dadgummit, if those deer mess up my whole evening because they blew out from where I was, I'm going to be so sad. I was in a bad spot mentally at that point in time. And well, not really that bad. I was kind of like, really, I was like, well, whatever. It is what it is. Anyways, about 30 or 45 minutes later, I see more deer, and my spirits are lifted, and ends up for the next hour, deer kind of pile past me, if anywhere from 20 to 60 or 80 yards. I actually end up letting a shooter, or maybe even 2 shooter bucks, get past me that I really would have liked to have had an opportunity at. One of them was like a 3-year-old 8-point. I didn't see him until he was quite a ways past.
Really?
Yeah, and it was up at the ag source.
A 3-year-old? Was he big?
Yeah, he was outside his ears.
Dadgummit.
Yeah.
I didn't know about this.
He was like an ETA kind of thing.
Man.
Yeah.
Did you get video of him?
Yes, I did.
Baby, I need to go see that.
Yeah. Let's see. Our friend Tony P had mentioned to you, and then you had mentioned to me, and then Jack and I had some experience with this we didn't really talk about earlier, but we had grunted in some little bucks that almost made it to us that I was going to shoot, and then they got wigged out. This is a different day. But anyways, the fact that grunt calls actually do work on these deer from this area of the country kind of earlier in the season.
Yeah, Tony,
right?
I was talking to him in Nebraska a bunch. And, and he was trying to help me out, and he was like, make sure you have a grunt call, because I've grunted them in before. Yeah,
and it's just something that deer just like to see other deer. They're kind of, gregarious in nature.
Gregarious.
Yeah, but I have learned through the years that East Texas grunt calls don't work at all, but like anywhere else you go, it's real hard to grunt at a deer who's already gone past you.
Yeah.
So I couldn't grunt at this 8-point and 6-point. They weren't going to come. They were like 60 yards away, and if I did grunt at them, they were definitely going to get my wind before they or before I got a shot. So they just got past. Well, I watched more does go by, and then it starts to really get good. Like, it's that time of day, and I was thinking, it's like, the other day, those big bucks came out after sunset, and they started filtering right by these trees. And sitting where I was, I had kind of decided, like, I had a shifting scale the whole trip of, like, what I wanted to shoot depending on the setup and where we were. And I knew that the next morning it was a good wind for that place, too. So I was kind of like, I don't really want to shoot a 1.5 here. You know what I mean? Like, I kind of want to wait on a bigger buck. I think I can go back and shoot a doe tomorrow if I need to, that sort of thing. So I was waiting, and my patience was rewarded with a big buck encounter. I'd learned from actually my mess up where those does caught me standing that if I would stand up, I could see a little bit further, and I could see deer start to crest the little knoll in front of me. I could see the top of their ears or their antlers, and then I could kind of get down and get in position and know to be ready. That's exactly what happened. I saw antler tips quite big crest over the knoll.
Just the tips were big?
Actually, the brow tines were probably one of the first things I saw. This
I'm going to lead
deer,
with the brow tines here.
this deer has like at least 6-inch brow tines on each side, maybe bigger.
The left one's bigger.
One
I
of
think.
them is like super long, and they're real wide. Some deer have this. It's not very common.
Yeah.
There's deer in my parents' neighborhood that's this way, but like the brow tines are 10 inches apart.
Yeah.
It's strange, but real cool.
It's cool.
But I see that this buck is not really on my trajectory. He's actually going to kind of follow the crest of this knoll and stay about 60 yards away. So I get down, get for sure out of sight, and hit just a couple bet on that grunt call, and then grab my bow and get ready and get the camera ready. Well, I don't see him come for like an eternity, but it's probably 45 seconds. So I decided to go ahead and make sure, and I hit a series of 3, kind of with a longer one in the middle, grunts, and then he crests, and he is looking for me. So I don't know, because I couldn't see the deer, what was going on. He may or may not have heard me the first time, but he for sure heard me the second time, and he was looking. You know, maybe if I hadn't done that second series of grunts, he might have just moseyed on over, but he was intentionally coming over to see what was going on, which worked either way. At this point in time, he comes through my first window at probably, I'm guessing, 35 yards, and is really just looking right down the pipe at me. I don't really have an opportunity to draw my bow kind of further than what I would like to have to shoot. I definitely would have taken that shot if it was presented, but he then proceeds to try to get my wind, which is going to work out well for me, because he has to go pretty much 180 degrees around me to win me, right? So he goes behind a clump of these plums, and that really gives me a great opportunity to kind of set up. And he, because I'm in such a thick spot and my camo's working so well, at any point in time that he is not double eyeing me, you know what I mean, like straight up looking at me, I can get away with moving a little bit. Not like doing a jumping jack, but kind of shifting my weight, moving the camera arm, kind of getting ready.
Doing more of a sleeping jack.
Yeah, exactly.
An oatmeal jack.
An oatmeal jack for sure. No flapjacks. Cannot flapjack in there.
No.
But I have a second window. This place is like a hunting blind, right? There's like a 2-foot hole here, 2-foot hole on my right, 2-foot hole on my left, you know? And he's walking to the hole on my right, and which really sets up good for me as a hunter, because my shoulders can turn that way pretty good at this position. I'm shooting from my knees. He makes it to the right to the edge of that thing, and he's trying to look and see me just a little bit more. One of the bad things about that shooting window is that it starts to get to the point where my camera arm is getting in the way of my shot. So I have to adjust the camera. The deer moves forward a little bit to a spot where I could take a shot at him. I just move the camera arm over just slightly. Oh, by the way, I had changed it from auto to manual focus before this. That way I could make sure the deer was in focus. And did that. The deer was pretty much looking at me, I think, as I drew my bow. But I felt that it was dark enough and that he was trying to see movement so bad in there that he wasn't going to spook. He was not in the spooking mode. He was trying to find the deer that was in there, right? But he was on alert. Draw my bow and do my best to really not rush my shot. Don't think I rushed it, but I could have definitely taken longer. It's just, man, when you're holding your bow back on an animal, milliseconds feel like, you know, a 40 time. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, it literally probably was like a 2-second draw, but it felt like 30. You know, it's just, it's crazy how time slows down. But my pin was steady. I checked my cam. I checked my bubble, everything. I mean, it was a great shot execution, not giving myself a pat on the back, but just like it was a good shot. It felt good, you know. I held for what I thought he was at 23. I had my single pin set at 20. I put that right at the top of his heart and squeezed the trigger. And I knew as soon as I shot that my arrow was doing good stuff. I mean, it was flying true, right? I knew the deer was going to duck because that's what whitetail do, especially at closer ranges. when they're on alert, and he ducked into my shot. I thought I'd smoked him, and then as he turned, because he wheeled out, I thought for some reason that he would keep going straight, but he wheeled out to go back to where he came from. And on the wheel out, I saw that I just did not have good penetration at all. It was very bad. But I guess just because I thought the shot was a good shot, I was very optimistic about where I'd hit him, and I was like, okay, that didn't look great. I was hoping it would just be a pass through, but it's a good spot on the deer. Like, there's vitals where I hit, right? Yeah. So, but I also knew that it was higher than what I wanted. But left to right, it was right where I wanted it.
Then you grabbed the camera.
I grabbed the camera because this deer quickly crested the hill, and I couldn't see him anymore. So I grabbed the camera, run up as fast as I can to the top of the hill. The deer is like running off real hard, right? So I'm like, okay, I'm going to run up there, see if I can see him fall or see where he goes. That way I can track him better. I knew because the arrow was high, well, not high, but higher than where I wanted. It was above mid-body line. There wouldn't be a ton of blood, and especially because there's probably not an exit hole, right? So I wanted to make sure that if it took this guy a while to get to pumping, that I had a decent bearing on where he went. Well, it ends up I wasn't able to do that. I ran out there, didn't see him, and that actually felt good because, like, dang, dude, did he fall out there? You know, like, is he out there right now? And I'm kind of having a freak out, kind of not sure how to feel about things because I didn't see him die, and you never feel good if you don't see him drop. That's just kind of how I am right now. And I turn around, and there's two brown blobs about 300 yards away on the side of the hill. And I'm like, ah! I didn't scream, but it was like, look, did y'all see that? Because I just thought I experienced this awesome moment by myself, and y'all got to see it.
Jack, we were sitting there talking up on that hill after we'd shot our deer. Watched two does go past you, and we weren't sure if you had shot them or what is happening. And then all of a sudden, Jack goes, "There's a big buck, big buck." I was like, "Where?" It's like, "Over there, going towards K.C." He goes, "Maybe it's mule deer." I put my binos up, and I was like, "No, you're right. It's a big buck." And so we watched that big buck and filmed that big buck just skylined going across at you for like 4 minutes, man.
Yeah.
And the whole time I'm thinking he's either seeing you or he's seeing does that had just come by and gotten weird. Mm-hmm. But he was like real alert, and he would stop. You know, he'd take a few steps, and then he'd stop, and he'd look for 30 seconds, and he'd take a few more steps. But as he got closer to you, I didn't realize how close he was. And then all of a sudden he just takes off running about the same time I hear this weird noise. And I told Jack, "K.C. just shot him. And so I followed him out as far as I could until we lost him. And then I looked over, and this dude's standing on the skyline over there, like celebrating, you know. I mean, not celebrating, but like when you saw us, you put your hands up like, man, I got the shot off. And I was like, man, this is insane.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I was real pumped, and Jack and I started giving high fives, and like I'm talking about like real high fives, dude, like MMA style, you know.
Yeah, we were all pretty hyped, and about it seemed like it took y'all forever to get to me because I was like, you know, kind of hyperventilating a little bit because I'm gonna be honest, guys, this is the biggest deer I've ever shot. You know, like this is a big buck. 8 point, but long tines, good main beams, good mass. You know, giant brow tines. I don't really get the shakes or get super nervous while the shot is being executed or while I'm drawn back. But after it happens, I kind of lose it a little bit sometimes. And that's kind of where I was. Very emotional, very, very like, don't know what to think, you know, very excited too, just overjoyed. And then y'all got there. And, of course, we're excited. Congratulations. I figured out, I mean, I knew pretty quick when I saw y'all, I was like, they shot something too. That's the only reason they're up there. You know, it's too good of a night for them to just ditch. So I knew y'all had shot something. So we were giving each other high fives and stuff. But I said something to you like, it's not perfect, but I feel pretty good about it.
Yeah.
So we look back at the footage. And sure enough, you can just tell the penetration isn't great. And that's when we're like, okay, we're going to have to wait and see on this deal. So what we decided to do is go back to the truck and then actually go back to camp because we were looking for rubber gloves.
The V-bracket.
V-bracket, rubber gloves.
And I had to put my danners on.
Had to put your danners on.
We decided to eat.
Danners and nanners. That's what we needed.
Yeah.
We decided because we knew it was going to be kind of a late night, especially dealing with 2 deer. So we made us some road witches and came back.
Watched computer video.
Yeah, and really kind of established that it was a good idea to let my buck chill for a little bit. So we went and got yours taken care of. That was awesome. Just fun to have all 3 guys on the recovery of your buck. He was way down in a hole. We had to put the ratchet strap on his antlers to get him out.
Y'all remember that deep side of the canyon I told you about in the very beginning? That's where he landed. And so we had to ratchet strap him up the hill.
There was blood spots up the hill where he tried to go up and just couldn't make it and just kicked the bucket right there.
Probably would have been really good footage, man, if we could have seen it.
Oh, I know. He took a tumble down that thing. That's crazy. But he ended up in the bottom. But we got him out. Tyler may have pulled a muscle in his back just a little bit, but he got some BC powder and took care of that and got that deer out and got him back to the truck and got to take some pictures and stuff. It was a lot of fun, man. Really cool deal.
Pictures turned out great, man. By the way,
Jack killed it on some pictures, man. He did a good job on that deal. Then it was time to go try to recover my buck. After we took a poll, how confident we were that the deer was dead. I was at 80%. Tyler was at 60%. Jack, I don't remember what you were at.
Pretty much 100.
Yeah, Jack's kind of a 0 to 100 kind of guy. He's just like all or nothing, which I love the positivity. So between all that, we all were feeling pretty good about this thing. And Tyler is by no means a pessimist, but he does his best to be as realistic as possible. And for him to say 60, that made me feel pretty good. That you were above 50% that you thought the deer was dead. And, I mean, quite frank, the shot wasn't in a bad spot, It just didn't get a lot of penetration. So we go in and start to try to make a recovery on this deer. We wheel the deer cart in to about where I was sitting, line things up, and go out to where the deer was standing. And, of course, there's no blood. I didn't expect there to be. I didn't see any. Like I said, I shot over mid-body. The blood has to pump out the top as opposed to just running out. So I thought it'd be a little while before he went to bleeding. But we went to grid searching and looking, and we weren't finding any blood. So we did some directional stuff and just went to the different draws that we thought he would have bailed off in. And this is not, I'm saying this in about 30 seconds, but we're talking about probably an hour of looking and doing stuff and us all spreading out with headlamps and looking for stuff. Mm-hmm. And we start walking around. We're shining down the hill trying to see if we see a deer or anything. Aren't seeing nothing. We don't see any evidence of blood going down in any of the little ditches that would have led down to the bottom of the hill. So suddenly things are like, as every minute passes, your mind just starts to get worse and worse as far as like your expectations of finding the deer. I still had hope, but I was really coming to grips with the idea like, man, this shot might not be as good as what I thought it was. And then we start to grid some more along the side of the hill there, and Jack finds quite a bit of blood on one gopher mound in particular.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, okay, we're back to being positive about this situation. This is a good bit of blood. What's going on here? But we can't find any more. And we're all sitting there thinking, if there's this much blood right here, where is this deer? Like, where's the blood trail to and from this spot? Cannot find it.
This is so weird.
Cannot find it at all. And it's just like, it's a head scratcher, man. We're looking and looking. I mean, down on hands and knees, of course, just trying to find anything and just cannot find anything. And it's about 11:45 at this point in time. We've been up a long time looking for deer. I mean, for us, bedtime out there is like 9 or 9:30 because, A, it gets dark real early, and B, we're getting up at 4:45. Or really, Tyler and I are rolling around at 3:30 just because we're old men. Anyways, we're getting tired. It's getting to the point where it's like, okay, we are going to be much better versions of ourselves in the morning. We're going to make more coherent decisions and see so much better. Hopefully just be able to pick up blood and just go find him. So we kind of take a poll. Tyler and I outvoted Jack. Jack was ready to go find the deer. Like I said, appreciate the enthusiasm and the positivity. But we decided to go back and go to sleep. And I'm going to be quite honest. I'm not the kind of guy to lose sleep in a situation like this. I can sleep.
Yeah, me neither.
It's honestly, I don't know. I think I get some peace from God about things a lot. You know, I mean, not think, I know that I do, right? I mean, it's God's will be enacted no matter what in any situation. Is it God's will that I kill or don't kill a deer? I don't know that, but either way, he's going to work through whatever the situation is. So that kind of helps me a lot. So went back, went to sleep. We actually ate a second supper that night.
Yep.
Of Snickers and Pop-Tarts, I believe. What?
Sounds like T. Jones is hungry.
I am hungry.
Missing some Pops.
You know it, man.
Dude, I know what you're going to do. You're going to go home and eat some cereal. That's what you're going to do.
Oh, baby, I haven't even thought about that. Boy.
Call your wife till you get them Lucky Charms.
Come on now.
Honey bunches of
Frosted
oats, all the good
Flakes.
stuff. So we go home, or not home. We went back to camp. I'm bad about calling wherever I'm sleeping that night home.
It was home for a week.
It
pretty
was
much.
home, dude. And I'd go back there and make it home again. For
Me
sure.
too. It was a good home.
But we slept into like 6, and got up, kind of took our time a little bit in the morning, let the sun get hot. You don't want to get out there when it's too early and you can't see great anyways, you know. So we got out, probably started looking about 7, maybe a little bit later. I don't remember for sure.
I think it was a little bit later. About
was it?
7:30, 7:45, I think. Yep.
And Jack had to make oatmeal again that morning.
Not
so,
that it matters really, but yeah,
sometime
it got
there.
light enough for us to feel good about it.
So we go out and we go to that blood spot and start gridding again and cannot find more blood. And we thought for sure that we'd go back and find more blood. And it just does not happen. So from there, I think people start trickling over to the side of the hill edge there and just start looking around down the bottom. I'm still looking for blood because that's just kind of my take on things. But I think you and Jack both were kind of looking around, and you ended up spotting a deer.
Dude, you want to talk about a heart attack,
I
man.
bet.
Golly. Dead deer.
Dead deer on the ground, white belly.
Dude, like, 100 yards from me, down the hill, I see a dead deer, and I'm like, well, there he is. Coyote runs off.
I saw a bald eagle in the tree right above it.
Yep. And I'm like, that's it.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, thank you. Finally, we found this thing, you know. Pull my binos up. I can't see antlers on it. I'm like, man, I think I would see antlers.
Yes.
Kind of say something to K.C. and Jack, and then I kind of walk down there a little bit down, not towards it, but closer along the edge of the hill there, and can see horns, and they are small horns. They're not big horns.
I didn't shoot a small horn deer.
No. And so I guess the blood on the gopher mound
was that deer's blood.
That's all we can figure.
It has to be.
Not going to brag on myself because there's plenty of things to criticize me about on this deal, but like when we found that blood, I was questioning how old it was.
Yeah.
It didn't look fresh enough to me.
Yeah.
But
whenever I found it, I kind of was like,
yeah.
I don't know if this was from an hour and a half ago.
Yeah, it was kind of weird, but at the same time, when blood falls on dirt, it can do weird things, right?
Right.
And there was different types of blood there, too. There's like a kind of a thick red spot, and there's like some thinner stuff. It's like, well, I don't have a clue, you know. But in the dark, how are you going to be like, okay, this isn't my deer's blood. This is a different deer. You know, it's just not how it works.
No.
But all we can figure is that somehow, some way, that little buck got shot by somebody or had coyotes get after it or something. Maybe got hit by a car or who knows. But that had to be either the blood from that deer or maybe something freaky happened where like a hawk ate another bird or something or whatever, you know. But like, for all intents and purposes, we can tell that was, or we think that was that deer's blood and not my deer's blood. So at that point in time, we're like, well, crap, dude. We just found this golden nugget of blood, and now that's no longer a piece to our puzzle. So this thing's blown wide open again. Who knows? Maybe we've looked in the wrong drainage the whole time, and there's a good blood trail for my deer somewhere else. We're like, who knows? So what we decided to do instead is to go walk that belt of timber, spread out 3 wide, and just get the wind in our face and kind of just mosey your way through there looking for a dead deer, looking for blood, or looking for him get up or something. And we jumped a bunch of deer out of this thing. It's definitely where the deer are living. There was deer bedded all over. Actually, we walked up like 40 yards from a little buck, and he just looked at us because he felt so good about where he's sitting that he didn't think that anybody would mess with him.
I jumped a deer that was 15 yards or less from me. I'm talking, she was getting out so quick. She was tripping over everything. She had to have been closer than that to Jack when he passed by, probably.
Yeah.
But
Jack's cowboy boots don't slow down very well.
No.
They're fast.
That day
man.
he wore his
They're so
lacrosses, I
fast.
think.
Oh, well, then that's why.
Because he
had grip.
He knew, dude.
He had grip to walk fast.
Yeah.
I also jumped a spike
Did you?
down the drainage.
Yeah. Jack kind of outran us. I think he's got long legs. So
Yeah,
he got up in
does.
front of us a little ways. But we were walking along, doing our thing, jumping a few deer here and there, and I'm always like looking on their heads, just checking. Well, sure enough, we're doing this thing. Tyler and I kind of are in eye contact with each other, and I see a big frame run down the edge of the belt of timber, and I said, "Big buck!" And I just take off sprinting because at this point in time, if my deer is on his feet, he's fine. We talked about this earlier in the trip, or that evening before, that if you shoot a deer like in the liver or something, he's gonna die, but who knows how long. Whereas the shot that I made, the deer's either dead on the ground or he's fine because you just didn't get to anything vital because it just stopped in his shoulder. I don't have anything conclusive just by that glimpse. I just know there's a big buck running, so I run as fast as I can and did not pull a hamstring, which I cannot believe because I'm a hamstring pulling fool. But I get up to where I can see, and I kind of catch up to him, sort of. He's like 50 yards away, but he slows up because I think he feels pretty comfortable, and he probably couldn't hear me running because I was in real soft grass, and it was kind of windy. But I think he might have saw or heard Jack further down, so he stopped, turned around, came back towards me, actually came to like 35 yards and stopped. Never knew I was there, but I like wasn't drawing my bow and trying to shoot the deer because I wanted to make sure I wasn't, culling. I didn't want to high stick this thing. I wanted to make sure that this was my deer before I took a shot at it, right? And then from that 35-yard spot, I'm like, okay, big frame, 8-point, looks like my buck. I'm looking for those brow tines to make sure. Or what's the other word that people, brow times? What
times, yeah.
Brow ties.
Who's
brow
ties?
ties. Brow ties. Yep.
Where's that from? I'm trying to rack
It's
my brain.
from a certain archery shop.
Brow
ties. From a person that you wouldn't think would do that.
Call that. Yep.
But it is what it is. Anyway, that buck turns 180 degrees from me and actually runs right past the base of the tree that y'all were sitting in the evening before, up this little drainage. And I see him turn, see him run away, and I can tell this deer has sizable brow tines. Now, he
ties.
Brow ties. Yeah.
Please don't say time again.
Wasn't super. It wasn't super detailed because when I was looking at him the night before, he was skylit, so I could see every detail of the antler. This, it's got brush and stuff around, but after looking at it, at that moment, I was 80% sure that was my deer, 100% alive, hadn't even slowed a step. You know what I mean? Like, when I saw him running down the side of the hill, or down the side of the timber belt, he had the whole, I'm going to sneak out of here, and I'm a big mature buck kind of thing going on. If you've ever jumped a deer, like, the different types of runs that deer have or whatever. Like, he had his head held high, his butt was kind of low, and he was going fast, but trying to stay still kind of stealthy and look for a hole. You know what I mean? And he wasn't hurt at all, which was the weirdest feeling to me because I was so sad that my deer was alive, but I was so happy that my deer was alive.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing. And now, like, I was 80% sure in that moment, and now after thinking about it, thinking about how many deer we saw that size, that would be one on the whole trip, like, it just, I am almost 100% positive that's him.
Yeah.
And he's fine.
Yeah.
I jumped him from where we thought he would have ended up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, actually that night, we didn't tell this detail, but that night you and Jack heard a deer get up.
Yep.
And kind of run down that direction exactly where that deer. So it could have been him, you know. This deer had no blood on any side of him, but on his right side, which is where I would have hit him, his hair was kind of messed up a little bit. So, I mean, I'm pretty much saying that that's him, and I'll live and die by it, and he's fine.
Yeah.
It just stinks, man. It stinks so bad because I just thought I had him.
Yeah.
You know, I thought he was mine. And maybe I'm just too greedy about things. I don't know. But it was just, I hit this deer in the perfectly wrong spot because with the setup I shoot, I can punch through about near anything except for that ridge. When you debone a deer, you'll know this on the front shoulder. If you haven't done this, you need to do it from time to time just so you can kind of understand stuff about deer anatomy. But the shoulder blade isn't just a flat blade. It's not like a moose antler. It's got a ridge about 3/4 the way onto one side that sticks straight up, and you actually have two roasts that come off of that called blade roasts. And if you happen to hit your arrow, no matter what you're shooting, if it's with a bow, right on that ridge, you're not going to get through there. And you can look on the footage that I have of this deer. My arrow goes and it stops and it twangs. Now, whenever I shot the deer and then reviewed footage, I was being optimistic and thinking that I had shot through one shoulder blade and that happened on the opposite shoulder blade. But in retrospect, looking at how much arrows hanging out of the deer and how much penetration I got, and then seeing that, it's just almost a definite that I just squared up on a shoulder of a deer as hard as you possibly can, and he barely even has a flesh wound.
Yeah.
You know, it's just straight into muscle. I mean, straight through a little bit of muscle, right into bone. And there's a good chance I could shoot at that deer next year in South Dakota as long as somebody doesn't smoke him with a rifle.
Yeah.
So, really, really stinks. I hate it, but at least he's not even hardly wounded. You know, there's a good chance that deer eats at that alfalfa field tonight.
Right.
You know, like it's not like he's like shot and going to have to recover for a long time. So I don't have that like same type of remorse that I've had in the past where if I lost a deer, like, you know, we talked about this too. Like, this is kind of a bad run for me because last year I ended my season on a whitetail buck that I hit and lost, and he died for sure, which is not fun. But at least this one didn't die, but it's still like, crap, dude, bow hunting is hard. That's what I have to say.
It's tough, man.
Yeah, especially from the ground. I'm not making excuses for myself, but, I mean, I've done some hard stuff, and killing deer with a bow is top of the list.
The whitetails with a bow from the ground has got to be up there as one of the top tough things, man.
It's hard.
You know.
Especially with a big-bodied buck like that thing, you know. Like, we're not talking just a doe that you're trying to break through. Like, this is the biggest bone structure you're going to find up there pretty much. You know, like, he's about topped out as far as bone structure goes. I don't know. That's it. That's my story.
Yeah.
I can go on forever about it, but that kind of that day 7 look for that deer concluded our hunt. You had tagged out. I wasn't going to hunt anymore after that. I had my shot at a big deer. We kind of blew out the spot looking for him, and then we
decided to go to Nebraska.
Yeah, shortly thereafter, picked up camp and headed to Nebraska.
And you know, bone the deer out and everything, make sure we're legal and all that. But
CWD makes it hard to hunt out of state nowadays.
It does, man. But yeah, we headed to Nebraska. We hunted this morning. Jack and I did, and you can barely call it that. It was more of just a bow hike. It was a beautiful morning. It was a good morning to get out and do some stuff. But we actually left. We met you at the gate at 8 a.m. to basically go home because I was just like, I told you, if I don't have service, 8 o'clock is good. If if I do have service, and we can adjust it from there. And I texted you when I had service. I said, let's make it 8 because we couldn't get up into a tree. There was some giant cottonwoods, and then some of the smaller trees had a ton of leaves. South Dakota is not Nebraska. It's still kind of early fall in Nebraska.
Yeah.
It is for real fall up there in South Dakota. So there's a lot of leaves on the trees this morning. And we just, we were just trying to kind of make something happen this morning. Still
a lot of crop standing in Nebraska, too.
Yeah, lots of crops standing. And I just, we just gave it one last little try to see if something could happen this morning, to make something special happen. And it didn't. So anyway, we had a bunch of concepts that we wanted to kind of talk about, and we can do this pretty quickly because I know this podcast is getting pretty long. But we have some kind of things that we wanted to kind of talk about in wraps for this podcast. Jack, first thing I want to talk about is, are you taking a shotgun to South Dakota next year?
I am, 100%.
And are you going to hunt with a license or not?
Yes.
Okay. So
Pheasant Central.
We've talked about like ways to make things happen. That would be real fun up there, and us 3 having shotguns and just being able to pile out and shoot birds on public land, man, would be awesome.
Here's a cool thing about South Dakota.
Yep.
South Dakota is a road ditch state.
Baby.
From everything I can tell. Worth calling the game warden from. Like I said an hour ago, maybe an hour and a half ago, who knows. Don't take legal advice from the element.
Yeah.
But from what I read in the rule book, it says you are allowed to shoot game birds of all sorts as long as you exit the vehicle, load your gun, and then shoot the bird.
Yeah.
So you can ride around with a shotgun, not chambered, jump out of your vehicle, and then shoot birds on any road ditch in South Dakota.
I'm leaving the action open.
Let me tell you something.
For sure.
How many grouse do we see in road ditches?
A lot, dude.
Too many. Too many.
I mean, I think like that last morning we jumped like 21 or something right there by the ditch.
Crazy, man.
Dude, nuts.
Yeah.
But anyway, bird paradise for sure. That was pretty fun. We talked a little bit about this, but we wanted to kind of emphasize the patience aspect of this hunt. Mm-hmm. It makes us sound like we're glorifying ourselves, but man, we worked really hard to have that patience because, like I said, we were trying to talk ourselves into it and talking each other out of it several times. But man, even on public land, if you find a spot that you know what's going on, if you're hunting private land, it's the same way. It's the same concept. There's plenty of podcasts out there that talk about the private land aspects of hunting a particular deer, right? And how you don't go in there until everything's right. Mm-hmm. And I think that's fine. I think that's good. As long as you got other places to hunt, you don't want to just hunt one time a year. But same thing on public, like we were seeing, is like if you got a place that you know you can go kill in, just wait till the wind's right. And we had to really, it was like, essentially the 6th day, and I guess we waited 5 days of season to actually go in there pretty much. So it was like, it just felt like forever, So
especially whenever you've got like family at home who really don't want you to be gone for 9 days.
Yeah.
If you could seal it up on day 2 or 3, they'd be real happy.
Which I would think a lot of times, if 2 or 3 days of patience, you should be able to get the right wind, or a wind.
Yeah.
So,
and I think that honestly, that's where hunting as a team helped us because, man, if I'm up there by myself, I'm going to talk myself into doing it earlier, and we had to talk each other out of it a couple times, right?
Yeah.
It's just sometimes you don't really process things because you're just trying to be, especially myself, optimistic about your chances on things. But
yeah, it's definitely is a big key point for us. We also hit on this earlier, but mule deer versus whitetail when their ranges cross, still can't really help you on that one.
All I can say on that personally, what I observed this week, if there's that breaky country kind of badland stuff, and there's not a lot of brush, it's probably just mule deer.
Yeah.
Otherwise, good luck. I don't know what to do.
Yeah. So
as far as like figuring out where for sure there's going to be just whitetails, you can't do that.
And I can't tell you where a mule deer buck really lives except for on private land. So,
yes.
Camping to hunt. Any thoughts? Any tips there? I know like we did lots of eating from. We have food totes that we take that have all our food in it, and we did lots of eating. And the best thing about like hunting with dudes that, not going solo hunting, but hunting with their dudes is like, if, I don't have a certain type of chips, we can trade food, we can eat each other's food or whatever, and like you get a little more variety in working that way. And if you're Jack, you get spoons and bowls and ramens and all kinds. What else do you get?
Dirty dishes duty at all.
That's
apparently.
right.
Yeah, and people get the sandwich stuff out for you and put it up for you.
Dang, Jack. Sorry, dude.
Yeah, people bring you Pop-Tarts.
I don't know about bring me them, but I have to find them because you'll hide them.
Oh, poor Jack. But I think that water was a serious situation for us on this trip. Luckily, you have one of those 5-gallon tubs, and we only had to go fill water a few times. But South Dakota is not like a mountain state where you can go filter water. There's like no clear water streams anywhere. So you had to
where we were at.
Yeah.
So
I don't know much about the whole state. Yeah, I guess
I don't
that's true.
either.
But I don't want to drink cow water too much.
No.
So we had to fill water. I think that having 2 5-gallon jugs would have been better, but we kind of maxed out the truck as is. So I don't know what we could have done there. But otherwise,
another thing we were able to do is we took a kind of smaller ice chest for the food, and we took a large one and used that for the deer, obviously.
Yeah.
But we were able to basically throw the deer in there and put ice on it once we got kind of headed back on the road. But like, I think that maybe having like some kind of like a drop cloth or something would have been real nice to help clean that deer a little bit. Or to bone it out without getting dirt all over the meat and stuff.
That brings up a good point, though, that if you and I both had killed a deer, we'd have had ample room in the ice chest. I don't think we need as much ice chest as what we brought with us.
Yeah.
Because whenever you're like dealing with CWD regulations, you have to debone your deer completely. Like meat is nowhere near as much room as hams and shoulders.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, I mean, we might have been able to fit 6 deer in that big ice chest back there. So, maybe like especially if you're a single guy, not single, but like hunting by yourself or one tag or whatever, like just one of those 40-quart coolers probably would hold deboned meat.
Yeah. Talk about the implications of rifle seasons and the quality of whitetails and salmon in some of these areas.
Yeah. Salmon have been decimated in the area.
I think that's worldwide.
Yeah. It seems like to me that we saw a ton of 1.5-year-old bucks. Like maybe we saw one 2-year-old buck.
Yep.
I saw, I guess, sitting on the ground by myself, a couple more 2-year-olds. But that was like in deer concentration mecca over there. Outside of that, like, there just was not a lot of age class to the deer. And, Tyler, you saw similar stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if I really said what my buck is. I can't remember that far back.
Yeah, he's like a 2-year-old 8 or something.
Yeah, nice. Just a basket 8, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
He ain't that big, but I'm super stoked about it.
I
was so happy. And by that point in the hunt, that's a pretty big achievement for me. And so
it's public land deer, dude.
Yeah.
Like, it's just there's just so many of those get killed in a year.
That's what Brian Broderick was talking about earlier, man.
Yeah.
Like he was like, man, he goes. And Brian's a dude that's killed some big deer, man.
Yes.
And like he's a guy that could very easily not care about these little deer.
He's also a guy who could very easily rage us and not care about it too.
Yeah.
Like if Brian wants to, he'll tell us what he thinks.
Yeah.
So when he says something, he means it.
Yeah, he was pretty daggum excited about it,
yeah,
man.
Dude.
So he gave me a big kudos and a big congratulations. So I thought that was cool. But yeah, that was probably the biggest buck that I saw outside of the 1.5-mile glassing stint we had the first day. But,
and that's a direct result of rifle seasons being long and having concentrated deer, right?
Yeah.
So you're just going to have older age class deer get shot because dude, if I could kill any buck within 200 yards of me this week, I could have killed 30 bucks.
Dude, we talked about this. In Nebraska, Jack and I would have killed the buck that we had at 12 yards because Turkey called him to stop at 90.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's just freehand, no big deal. we would have killed 2, 3, 4 elk in Colorado, as many as we had tags for, you know, with rifles. And then we could have killed out here with rifles several times too. And so it's definitely a big advantage, you know. And I'm not trying to knock rifle hunting at all.
I'd love to shoot a deer with a rifle this year.
I'm going to try to shoot one with a rifle this year, actually. But I'm just saying that we have had some close calls, man, and you know, it's been a little bit disappointing, but we've been close, man. So
but the point is that you can go out and kill bucks with a rifle,
right?
And that's why we have the age class. Well, I wouldn't say it's bad, but it's just it's kind of similar to home.
Lots of young bucks, man.
Lots of young bucks.
And I think that's just, like I said, a direct result of having longer rifle seasons, which I don't even know what the rifle season is necessarily, but I know that a lot of people get after them with rifles out there. So that's one of the, that's one of those things that just happens there, and you're going to deal with. So anyway, the last kind of thing I wanted to hit on was you've already probably talked about every one of the concepts you're about to talk about in your story. So just hit the highlights of what you need to think about if you're hunting from the ground.
Wind direction, the ability to see, the shot distance, I think, is a huge one, because when you're hunting from the ground, especially in grassland country, you can't range anything. It's hard to range a piece of grass and know which one you hit and how far it is. So unless you've been there before, or you can put out a marker or whatever, which I don't suggest doing because then you'll synth stuff up. That's a huge thing. Drawing from the ground is difficult because you got to have some concealment. They're going to see you, and then you got to think about your shot angles, because from a tree stand, if I'd have hit this deer where I did, it would have gone down as opposed to in, and it would have exited out his lower quarter on the other side, and he'd been dead in 60 yards. But because I actually was shooting slightly uphill, it was even more difficult of an angle than flat. So those are probably the top ones there.
Yeah, for sure. These videos are going to come out soon, guys. I'm gonna work hard on them. We've been gone quite a bit in the last few months, last month essentially, especially me and
let me
Jack.
say something real quick too. We never hung true tree stands. We hunted saddles the whole time. And none of us have ever been like, oh, I just want to be a saddle hunter. Here's my saddle selfie. But we kind of thought it was a good idea. You've thought that you weren't that comfortable in them, and probably still think that, I'm sure, because you're just kind of a big guy. Not a big hunter
Not
or
a big
anything,
hunter,
but yeah, just a large-framed human. But it just made it super accessible. Like, walking in 1.25 miles with a regular stand, we've done it plenty of times. It is the worst. And it's really just hiking pretty much when you got a saddle on. So they were real nice.
Oh, it was real nice for sure, man. I probably will hunt out of a tree stand some this year, but I was very happy to have a saddle, man. So anyway, those are definitely the high points and the thoughts that we have afterwards. Like I said, videos are coming out soon, I hope. If you haven't subscribed on YouTube, yo crazy, so go do it. And Colorado should be coming out real quick. I've got that second video lined up. There's some pretty cool stuff, man. We do have another elk encounter, get a bull on video.
Things die.
Things die, yep. I'm thinking you probably know that it's not an elk, but
fish
there are
and
things.
fowl.
Fish and fowl. So
Fin and feather.
Yeah, we had some fun stuff happen.
Filet and
mignon.
Filet.
So anyway, go check, subscribe on the YouTube channel so you can see the videos that are going to come out this season. We're going to have probably, looks like maybe 3 videos from South Dakota. All this stuff we've talked about is on video because we got Jack Summers, man, Click Clack Jack with us, and we got some good footage, man, some good stills. So we're gonna be leaking out some of that stuff. Sorry for the tease. If you're listening, we've already teased this out and shown everybody. If you were thinking that we were going to shoot a big buck and tease it, you're wrong, because we're teasing the little buck. So don't be disappointed. Don't be mad at it. Hopefully we'll tease another big buck or a big buck again someday soon.
Yeah. Sorry I didn't kill a big buck, guys. I got real close.
It was close, man.
Yeah.
It was everything you could do to get it where you were, man. So good moves on your part, man. Good thoughts. We really all of us worked together to make things happen, and it feels good to, as a team, do what we've done. on this trip, man. And I'm really excited because it was not hunting season in Texas when we left, and now it's deer season.
My goodness.
And
I got to go put out some golden nuggets.
That's right. I got to get some corn on the ground and hopefully get something killed there. And then later this month, when we get a cold front, we might have to make a flying trip to Illinois/Iowa. So I'm looking forward to that. I think that's going to definitely happen. And I'm just excited about November after that. So hopefully we can get some real experts on the podcast sometime this month for you. Be checking out the Big Buck Breakdowns because there's some cool stories. There's some big bucks going down, and we're about to hop on the phone with a dude right now and do one of those. So anyway, make sure you're subscribed here on the podcast as well. And remember, this is your element.
Live in it.
The new Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook Wild Game Recipes for the Grill, Smoker, Campfire, and Camp Stove is out on April 24th and is available for pre-order now. Here is your book for everything that's best cooked or eaten outside. From grilling to open fire cooking to Dutch ovens to smokers to barbecue to backpacking meals to how to pull off the perfect fish fry, with pit stops along the way for lessons about Ice Age cooking methods and the best 5 ways to construct a cooking fire you can be proud of. And of course, we're focusing on wild game and fish here with over 100 recipes, including stuffed venison burgers 3 ways, wild duck with ahi verde sauce, a jerky made with cola, a gin and tonic made with fire-charred lemons, and grilled frog legs made with a sticky sweet sauce. This ain't your normal cookbook, so be prepared to be surprised. Pre-order your copy now. For more info, visit themeateater.com.